Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 23 minutes before 11 o'clock, if you're wondering what's going on. We just had a whole room full of kittens. Oh my gosh, that was fun, right?
They're cute and fun.
That was fun, yeah. I kept holding one near the microphone trying to get it to purr. I don't think any sound went across the air, but the video, we definitely got them on there. Yeah. All right, we got another fun. I love National Geographic. Natasha Daly is on the phone. She's a journalist and writer for National Geographic and an author in her own right. She's talking to us about National Geographic Magazine's June 2019 cover story, in other words, right now, titled The Hidden Cost of Wildlife Tourism Special Report. Oh my gosh, I have such horrible feelings about people who pay money to go on safaris. I just don't like that, Robin. Mm-hmm. The National Geographic documentary, Inside the Dark World of Captive Wildlife Tourism. Natasha Daly, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning, Natasha.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
So I don't want to presume, but is this about the people who pay money to go on safaris and come back with heads and things like that?
So it's not specifically about that. So what we're actually looking at was the captive wildlife tourism industry. So what that means is, so we were sort of looking at people who go on vacation and seek experiences like riding elephants or petting tiger cubs or having these up-close encounters. And we looked into this industry all over the world, actually. We went to Thailand, we went to the Amazon rainforest, we went to Russia, and we went to Hawaii. So that was sort of the focus, less safaris and wild experiences and more these captive, up-close experiences.
Okay. Are you getting a horrible echo?
I am.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm so sorry. I could sort of hear it in the background. I was trying to do my best to see if I could fix that somehow. Are you okay with that? Can we move forward?
I'm fine.
Okay. So
I'll make it work.
So what you just said right there, I cringed because I've done the elephant ride thing. So I'm actually part of the problem. I need to think better about this stuff, right? I was thinking killing animals, but you're talking about riding them, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So we were actually looking at those tourism experiences. I mean, as you say, that you've done it before. I mean, that's not out of the norm. A lot of people have. A lot of people have ridden elephants.
Right.
A lot of people have kind of gone and snuggled tiger cubs. And the thing is that just as you mentioned, and I'm glad you did, it's not necessarily something that people realize is even a problem in any way, because you show up, you go have these experiences for maybe an hour or two, and then you kind of carry on with your vacation. But what you don't see behind the scenes can actually be pretty troubling, and that's what we are looking into.
Okay, so we are in the heart of Florida, and we have SeaWorld here, we have Disney's Animal Kingdom here, Busch Gardens is here. Are those places part of the problem too, or are they doing it? Is anybody doing it right?
So what we were looking at, and especially in Thailand, we were looking at the sort of really close encounters and sort of, I mean, some of the things you describe are more observational experiences,
right. And
that's something that's different. So what we were looking at is the kind of those up-close, hands-on experiences, and why it's different, and I'll explain this, is because in order for that elephant, for example, to be trained to give you a ride or to stand still while you give it a bath or to perform in a show, that elephant has to be trained from a young age. And typically what we found in our reporting is that those training methods are fear-based. And similar with tigers, in order for it to be safe for you to get up close to an adult tiger, often the tigers are declawed or drugged to make that safe. So that really is the difference between observing animals in a responsible, sort of more natural setting and having those up-close encounters.
And you have a wonderful photographer, too, Kirsten Luce.
Yes, Kirsten Luce. She's wonderful, and we spent about a year and a half together reporting this story all over the world. So we were absolutely a team.
So tell me, Natasha, what did you discover, and did you go into it with a different mindset than you came out of this assignment with?
Yeah, I mean, I went into this, so we actually started this story in the Amazon rainforest almost 2 years ago, looking at experiences. People were pulling wild animals actually out of the jungle for selfies, and this was something that was concerning because these animals don't do well in captivity. They're wild animals. So we actually published a story on that situation, and from there we realized that this whole industry was something that's happening everywhere. It's happening in the U.S., it's happening all over the world, and we really wanted to go further. So yeah, we sort of had an idea of some of the things we might find. We knew that there were problems associated with, elephant rides, for example, but we really had no idea what we'd learn once we actually got out there into the field. And yeah, some of the things we saw were pretty shocking.
Oh my gosh. And so just going back to, because if it was me, if I were in your shoes, I would have felt like I had no idea this was going on the way it's going on. And I would have, in other words, I would have presumed that I knew what I was getting into, and then to find out that I didn't know. Did that happen for you, or did you kind of know in advance?
I think we knew in broad strokes. We knew that, for example, in Thailand, there were lots of elephants involved in the tourism industry. But what I didn't know was how big the scale was of this. There are 3,800 elephants in captivity, and most are involved in tourism. I didn't know how they were trained for these experiences. I didn't know how they live because I had not seen it for myself. So it was really important to actually get out there and see that in order to understand what's really going on.
So when you say they use fear to train them, that's not exactly the same way we would train our dogs or our cats. I mean,
exactly.
It's completely different. I don't know the science of training an animal, but wouldn't the same things we use for our dogs and cats work? Like, couldn't those animals be trained in a more gentler way?
Well, so the difference between, say, elephants or tigers and those inherently wild animals and domestic animals like dogs and cats and horses is that, so dogs and horses have been domesticated for thousands of years. So they're conditioned to live with humans. The training that's involved in getting, dogs to do things or use the bathroom or learn tricks is not nearly as intensive or invasive as it is with these inherently wild animals. So even if an elephant is born in captivity, it's still wild, and so in order to get that elephant to comply and sit and do the tricks and make it safe, you have to use more invasive methods than you would for other animals. And yes, there are some methods that are newly sort of being tested out using positive reinforcement to teach elephants to do certain things like with dogs. But what I witnessed was that those kind of positive reinforcement methods can be used to get an elephant to lift its foot to take medicine or something. But to get them to do handstands and throw darts in a show, which is very common, we found that those methods are more invasive.
And we're also told that some people want babies from tigers and things, and then they'll strap the tigers down or drug the adult tigers so they can get rid of, take the babies.
Yeah, so snuggling baby tiger cubs, it's something that's very, very popular for tourists, and I think we can all kind of understand why. They're adorable. To be able to hold one is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for many people. But in order for a facility to always have babies available to cuddle, they have to always have them being born. And babies are only a certain age for about, not a lot of time, several weeks. And so what happens is that mother tigers are often speed bred so that there are always new babies being born, and they're taken from their mother shortly after birth. So it really is this cycle that perpetuates itself over and over.
Like the puppy mill thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, yeah, that's not a bad analogy at all. It's the demand for the baby animals that is part of the problem. They're not babies forever, of course.
One of the things that I think National Geographic has a reputation for, it is the ability to intellectually inspire us or motivate us to amend our behaviors if we're part of the problem, and to help out any movement that needs to be done so that we can maybe live in a better world. And this is just another example of that. I've always loved what you guys do and how you do it, and I think the marriage of skillful writing with skillful photography has always been. And I'm not trying to sell your magazine. Nobody needs me to do that. Everybody already knows this is true. But I think it has had an effect on us. And now in today's world, you have all these produced shows like on the internet, etc.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for saying that. That was sort of our intention, to kind of pull back the curtain on this industry, to show people what we found out through our reporting is that most people just aren't aware of this at all. People love animals and they want to get close to them, but I truly do believe that if people knew that a lot of animals are suffering for these experiences, they wouldn't want to do them.
Right, I think you're right.
Yeah. So I think that ultimately is our goal, to sort of present people with, here are some of the hidden realities. Now, it's up to you, the public, the readers, the citizens, to sort of decide what you want to do with that information.
So is the National Geographic documentary Inside the Dark World of Captive Wildlife Tourism based on your article?
Yes, so I actually shot the documentary while I was in the field reporting, and it's a mini doc. It's 13 minutes, and it's this real-time sort of look, because I'm basically taking selfie videos of myself as I discover things in the field. So it sort of gives readers a sort of more inside look at like what we actually found in real time.
How do we watch it? Is it on the website?
Yes, so to see the story in the documentary, you can go to natgeo.com/wildlife tourism, and at the top you'll see the main story, and then right below that you'll see the documentary.
Were you afraid during the time you and Kirsten were doing this that you might get your material confiscated?
Yeah, I will say that, fears like that, I think, entered our head, especially, in certain places we were in. We were in Russia, for example, and then we ultimately didn't know how it would go. We arrived somewhere to report a sensitive story, and you never know how it's going to sort of transpire. I think we were very lucky that we felt through the whole time we did feel safe, and we were able to report the story and get people to talk to us, and that was ultimately the goal. So I think that it was a success.
So I went to the site, and the first pictures show people posing with a tiger, and they look beautiful. So anybody who sees these pictures is going to want to do this. Is the tiger in these pictures in any danger? See, it looks like it looks like a nice cat.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I get it. And that's sort of, especially a lot of these photos are shared through social media. So you might see this photo on Instagram and be like, this looks amazing. I want to do this too. So that's why it's so important to kind of read further and learn more. And yes, so that particular tiger that you're talking about was chained by its neck to a platform on the ground. And we saw that tiger was very agitated, sort of walking in circles. And what people do is they come in over and over and get their photo taken and leave. But that tiger is chained by the neck to that platform all day.
Do you know what? We have an observation we made one time. I had a frog in my garage, and I didn't want to back out because I was afraid it was going to roll over it. And yet I don't mind backing out when I know there's a roach in my garage. And so we had this conversation where, cute things are sometimes more protected than not so cute things, right? And so, what you're saying, I just was thinking about we have an alligator place here, not too far from here, and people literally will sit on an alligator, and the alligator's mouth is taped shut. That almost sounds similar to what you're talking about, but the alligator is not as cute as a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely similar to what I'm talking about. It's the same problem. Yes, I think you raise a great point. Yes, the alligator maybe some people think it's this cute, but most people wouldn't. And yes, just because it's a reptile doesn't mean that it suffers any less. This is still a sentient animal. Still has pain receptors, still can feel suffering. And we went to crocodile shows in Thailand where exactly what you described, mouths are taped shut and they're sort of hit with sticks for entertainment. And it was very sort of troubling to witness. And what we found the difference in audiences watching an elephant show versus a crocodile show was that with the elephant shows, they were watching elephants perform tricks, and it was impressive. And maybe they're not aware of abusive tactics that go into that. But with the crocodile show, the whole show was just the crocodile being hit with a stick and people laughing. So it was definitely a different attitude, I think, from the audience. But I think it really is important to kind of let go of what we might think is a cute animal, and therefore it maybe deserves our concern more, and maybe think about overall how all these animals have,
You have really pretty hair, by the way. We're looking at the video right now. Look how pretty her hair is.
Yeah.
So there was one thing in there that, oh my gosh, it just passed already. What was it that I was going to comment on?
Was it the tiger with like the feather or something on its face?
Oh no, it was
the
the chimpanzee on the
doing sit-ups.
No. He's on a cable. He's on a zip line.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was watching the picture.
Right.
How do the employees? I mean, why do people need to be employed by places like this? I mean, don't you think the employees have a conscience? They can't all like to abuse animals.
Right. I mean, I think that, first of all, I think you raise a great point that, yes, this is a very, very lucrative industry. So there's money to be made in the captive wildlife tourism industry all over the world. And yes, in many places it provides jobs to people in local economy. But I think that, the majority of people that I spoke to who work at these facilities may not actually think that anything's amiss or anything's wrong in any way. Most people say, we love our animals, we take good care of them. It's something that I think is a challenge. A lot of kind of elephant trainers, for example, who we met, were sort of had been through 18 elephants. They've been cycled through a different elephant every few months and sort of had just taken the job because it was a well-paying job. So I think it's something that varies absolutely from place to place, and there's no sort of one blanket answer for what actual employees of these places think about the situation.
Now, you are having a social media campaign also to make people aware.
Yeah, so social media, so none of these activities are anything new, but social media really has sort of set this industry on fire. And that's because sort of, like I mentioned before, these experiences were once shared through word of mouth or through guidebooks, but now they're shared through posts on social media. So you might see on your Instagram feed someone having a tiger experience and want to do the same thing. So what social media does is it serves as almost viral advertising for these experiences. So it was really important to us to highlight social media's role in making these activities so popular. But then what we really wanted to do, we knew that once the story came out, where we'd be able to kind of reach people was through social media itself, because that's where these experiences live. So we were absolutely blown away by the reaction, especially on Instagram, I think, to this story. People were sending me messages, were reposting the story, were saying, I had no idea that these things were even a problem. I had people messaging me from vacation, actually, and saying, we were going to ride an elephant tomorrow, but we saw your story and now we're not going to. So those reactions are really heartening, because it means that these things have resonated with people.
Because we don't know. I mean, this is a harder one to understand than the safari one that I thought this was going to be about, because as I watched the video, it looks like the animals are having fun. I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to see it.
I think that's part of the kind of the misconception that people have, is it really does look like the animals are having fun. And that's sort of how this is able to work, because people go, they love animals, they want to have a good time. It seems like the animals are totally fine. The tiger is just sitting there on the platform and isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to think that, okay, everything's good, everyone's having fun, and I'll kind of go home. And that's why this is just so hard for the average. It's so hard for the average person to know there's anything amiss.
I have a question about the end of their lives. When they get old and they can no longer perform, are they just euthanized?
Yeah, so with elephants, elephants can live 80 years in captivity. They can live as long as people do. So this is, many of them start out in camps when they're 4, and they keep giving rides or performing tricks or doing tourist encounters until they're too old to do so, and sometimes that's at 60, sometimes 70, sometimes 80. So often you'll find the animals they just die from old age. So there's a few places that'll kind of retire elephants and allow them to stop performing when they get too old. But I think you raise a great point, because the industry is still breeding new baby animals. So the decision to sort of breed a new baby elephant for the tourism industry, that's a decision that will last 80 years and have consequences for that animal throughout its life.
Have you witnessed any of the animals crying, you and Kristen?
Yeah, so So elephants don't actually have tear ducts, so they can't cry. And so I think that's something that's really difficult because animals don't verbalize pain in the same way we do, of course. Animals don't cry like we do. Animals don't show pain like humans do. And that's part of why it's so difficult to see if an animal is suffering. You know, if a person's suffering, they'll cry or scream or wince. But an animal won't display pain in the same way. And so it can be really tough. And I think a great example actually is many elephants in captivity sway their trunks back and forth over and over and over. And it looks like they're dancing, but in reality, this is stereotypical behavior that's caused by psychological distress.
Oh my God!
I always think that. I always used to think that when I was a kid. I grew up in New York, and I would go up to the zoo in Central Park, and I used to see this polar bear in there, and I never gave it a thought that this poor guy has nowhere to go. But he was always in there pacing or just laying down. And when I got older, because I was a 14-year-old or whatever, and I started thinking, wait, that's a crazy life to live. And then, you move to some place like Florida, you go to Busch Gardens, you see these thousands of acres of space, and you go, oh my gosh, that place in Central Park was really horrible for that particular bear. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough. You don't know if that's all you're seeing and you don't have other context. It's so hard to know. And I mean, yeah, so people have asked me over and over, okay, what can we do to kind of avoid these experiences if we don't know what's bad and what's good? And so what I would suggest if you're looking to avoid contributing to any sort of animal abuse in the tourism industry is to sort of look for more observational experiences where you can watch animals sort of engaging in their natural behavior, where elephants can maybe interact with other elephants, where they're able to sort of roam, where they have shade, where they have shelter, and they're not forced to perform and interact with you. And so those are kind of good rules of thumb to follow.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. In a short interview, you made me rethink some of the things that I've done.
Me too.
And I thought it was going to be clear-cut, easy to be against it, but this is a hard one to be against because some of the things are right here. I mean, we have, I think you can swim with the stingrays or something. I don't know if that's a problem.
And the dolphins, you can swim with the dolphins down here.
We have a lot of that right here, so...
right.
Natasha, thank you.
I think the crocodiles with the taped mouths, you raised a great point, and maybe people will rethink that now.
Yeah, but we did it. That's what I'm trying to say.
I know.
It's not like we're innocent of this. We've participated in this, not really. See, you've opened up our eyes, and that's really an amazing thing that you have been able to do, Natasha. I'm a hard one to change, but I think you just changed my mind about something.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and it was great to talk to you both.
Oh, you too. Okay, so the website I went to see the video we were just talking about, NatGeo, natgeo.com/wildlife tourism, and you'll find it right away.
Yes, and it's also on the cover of the June issue of the magazine on newsstands everywhere right now.
That is wonderful.
Yeah, go get the magazine.
It's a great article, by the way.
Love the magazine.
Thank you very much.
Great article. Well written.
And there's a web version of the magazine too, right?
Yes, and that's what you can find at that link, natgeo.com/wildlife tourism.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Natasha Daly, thank you for being on the air. Thank you for what you've chosen to do. Good stuff.
Thank you so much to you both.
You're welcome.
Take care.
We'll be right back.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall studio.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. A close call in the Philippine Sea. The Navy says the USS Chancellorsville had to maneuver out of the way when a Russian destroyer came within 50 to 100 feet of the ship.
It's the second time in 3 days the Pentagon has accused Russian forces of provocative and dangerous actions. Tuesday, a Russian fighter jet buzzed a U.S. Navy reconnaissance plane in the eastern Mediterranean near Syria.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson at the Pentagon. The Russians say the Chancellorsville crossed the path of their ship. Former Vice President Joe Biden says times have changed and that he no longer supports the congressional ban on